It's 5 in the morning. You're asleep in your own bed, in your own home, having done absolutely nothing wrong. And then the front door explodes inward. Boots in the hallway, shouting, torches, hands, a team of police officers pouring through your house. And here's the part that turns this from a nightmare into something you genuinely need to understand. Sometimes they are at the wrong address. Not the criminal they were after, you. An innocent person in the wrong house, on the wrong end of a raid that was never meant for them. It happens more than anyone admits, and in the terror of that moment, almost nobody knows that the law gives them specific rights, the exact words to say, the one thing to ask to see, the things to write down, that can turn a wrongful raid into a claim the police have to answer for. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll know precisely what to do if the police ever come through your door, and how to tell in seconds whether they're even allowed to be there. I'm Oliver Bennett. I'm a criminal defence solicitor here in England and Wales, and in 15 years I've stood in a lot of hallways the morning after, with families who were raided by mistake, who did nothing, and who had no idea that what happened to them was, in law, unlawful. This isn't legal advice, it's the plain English version of what I wish every one of them had known before the door ever went in. And before you tell yourself this could never be you, that raids only happen to guilty people, let me stop you right there, because that's exactly the assumption that leaves innocent people frozen. Wrong house raids don't happen to criminals. By definition, they happen to the innocent. And the reasons are almost stupidly ordinary. A digit transposed on a warrant application, number 16 instead of 61, an intelligence report that's months out of date, and the big one, the police raiding a suspect's last known address, a flat that person moved out of 2 years ago, where a completely different family now lives and sleeps. The suspect is long gone, the address is still on the system, and one morning, it's your door. You don't have to have done anything for this to land on you. You just have to live somewhere a wanted person used to live, or somewhere a tired officer mistyped. That's it. So let me tell you when a raid on your home is actually lawful, because this is the ground everything else stands on, and it's simpler than people think. In almost every case, for the police to force their way into your home to search it, they need a warrant, a document signed by a magistrate or a judge. And a warrant is not a vague permission slip. The law, under the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, requires it to be specific. It has to name the premises to be searched, your address, spelled out. It has to say what they're looking for. And it only authorises a search of that address for those things. So the single most important fact for you to hold on to is this. A warrant is tied to an address. It is permission to enter one specific building, and if that building isn't yours, the warrant is not a key to your door. It authorises nothing at your home at all. And I want to kill a myth right here, because it's the myth that lets people believe a raid must have been justified simply because it happened. The police cannot get a warrant on a whim. To get one, an officer has to go to a magistrate or a judge, in writing, and satisfy them that there are reasonable grounds to believe a serious offence has been committed, that there's material at that specific address that's evidence of it, and that a search is necessary and proportionate. That's a real threshold, and it's meant to be a real check, which means a raid is not made lawful by a rumour, by an anonymous tip nobody stood behind, by we smelled something, or by the fact that they turned up mob-handed and looked very sure of themselves. Confidence is not a power. The warrant and the address on it is the power, and everything else is just noise designed to make you feel like you have no right to question it. You do. Now, there are a handful of situations where the police can come in without a warrant, and I'll be straight with you about them so you're not caught out. Under Section 17, they can enter to arrest someone for a serious offence, or to save life or limb, or to prevent serious damage to property. Under Sections 18 and 32, they can search premises connected to someone they've just arrested. Those are real powers. But notice what they all have in common. They need a genuine, specific reason that actually connects to your address or to a real emergency inside it. We were in the area, we had a hunch, a welfare concern, with nothing behind it. Those are not powers. So whether it's with a warrant or without one, the question is always the same, and it's the question I want burned into your mind. What exactly gives them the right to be in this house? Which brings us to the moment itself. The raid is happening, they're already inside, and you're standing there in the chaos, wondering what on earth you're allowed to do. So here is what you do. And the first rule is the hardest one. You do not physically resist, and you do not fight. I know how that sounds when strangers are in your home, but hear me, you will not win this in the hallway, and struggling only gets you hurt or arrested. You win this afterwards, calmly, on paper. So instead of fighting, you ask. You have the right, when police execute a warrant, to be shown that warrant and to be given a copy of it. So you say it, clearly and calmly, the single most powerful sentence you own in that moment. Show me the warrant. Does it name this address? Because that one question does two enormous things at once. It forces them to produce the document, and it puts on the record, out loud, in front of everyone, that you asked whether they were even at the right house. If they can show you a warrant with your address on it, then, like it or not, it's lawful, and you comply and sort out any complaint later. But if they can't, if the address is wrong, or they can't produce a warrant at all, or the thing they're tearing your house apart for isn't on it, then you are watching an unlawful search happen, and every second of it is building your case. And while it's happening, you become a quiet, calm recording device, because the details are everything. Get the officers' names and their shoulder numbers. Note the time they came in. Note what they said the reason was. If you can safely film or photograph the damage to your door, the state of your rooms, what's happening, then do, because you are entitled to, and that footage is gold later. Do not consent to anything beyond what the warrant actually covers. If it says they're looking for one specific thing, they've no business helping themselves to a general rummage, and you can calmly say you don't consent to that. You're not obstructing them, you're documenting them. There's a world of difference, and the law protects the second one. And let me be precise about that difference, because it's where good, innocent people accidentally get themselves arrested. Obstruction, willfully obstructing an officer in the lawful execution of their duty, means physically getting in the way, hiding things, barricading a room, laying hands on them. Do not do any of that, ever, even if you're certain they're in the wrong house, because the moment you do, you hand them a genuine reason to arrest you, and you've turned yourself from the victim of a wrongful raid into a defendant. But asking to see the warrant is not obstruction. Standing calmly to one side filming is not obstruction. Saying, I don't consent to you searching the loft, that's not on the warrant, is not obstruction. Asking an officer for their name and number is not obstruction. Every one of those is you exercising a right, quietly and lawfully, and no honest officer can lawfully arrest you for it. Keep your voice level, keep your hands still, and let your words do the work. Because calm, specific words are exactly what read so well later, in a complaint or a courtroom, and panic and pushing read so badly. There's one more thing to know about how a warrant has to be executed, because it gives you another quiet check. When they come in on a warrant, on request, the officer in charge has to identify themselves, and they have to produce and show you the warrant and give you a copy of it, either at the time or as soon as reasonably practical afterwards. They're only allowed to use reasonable force, and only if it's genuinely necessary to get in. They can't smash the place up for the sake of it. And they can only search to the extent the warrant allows, and only for as long as that reasonably takes. So if any of that is missing, no warrant produced, no copy, a search that roams far beyond what they claim to be looking for, those are not just rudeness, they're the cracks that make a search unlawful, and they're exactly what your notes should capture. And knowing exactly where those lines fall, when a raid is lawful and when it's a trespass, what to say the moment the door goes in, and how to hold the police to account afterwards, is precisely why I did something a lot of you have asked me to do. So many of you have written to me saying, Oliver, I would have no idea what to do or say in that moment. Put it all in one place so I've got it. So I did. Everything I cover on this channel, the real powers the police have to enter your home, the exact words to say when they're at your door or already through it, and how to complain and claim if they've got it wrong. It's all in one plain English handbook for England and Wales called Know Your Rights. It's written so you can actually use it under pressure, the kind of thing you keep to hand for the day you hope never comes. If you'd like it, the link's in the description below. But everything you need to take the first step is right here in this video. So let me tell you what a wrong house raid actually means once the dust settles, because this is the part that changes everything. If the police raided the wrong address, if that warrant named number 61 and they came through the door of number 16, then the entry and the search were, in law, unlawful. There was no valid authority for a single officer to cross your threshold, and that isn't just a moral point, it has hard legal consequences. It can be a trespass to your property and, if they held you or your family while they did it, a false imprisonment. It can breach your rights under Article 8 of the Human Rights Act, your right to respect for your home and your private and family life, which the state cannot invade without lawful justification. The police's own rulebook, Pace Code B, actually says in black and white that if the wrong premises are searched by mistake, everything possible should be done at the earliest opportunity to put it right and to address the grievance of the person whose home it was. In other words, even they acknowledge this is a wrong that has to be answered for. And practically for you, it means this. A wrongful raid can found a claim for compensation against the police. Families in exactly this position, innocent people whose homes were wrongly torn apart, have brought civil claims and been compensated for the trespass, the fear, and the damage. The door they smashed, they may well end up paying for. Let me make that real, because a principle only lands when you can see it. Picture a couple, I'll call them the Hardys, an ordinary pair in their 50s, no record, no trouble, who moved into a rented flat 18 months ago. What they didn't know is that the man who lived there before them was wanted, and his details still listed that flat as his address. One morning the door comes in, the police are shouting a name that isn't theirs, and it takes 20 terrifying minutes of a search, drawers out, floorboards up, the pair of them held in their own front room, before anyone works out the man they want hasn't lived there since before the Hardys moved in. That is a wrong house raid. And the Hardys, who did nothing, who simply rented the wrong flat, are entitled to an explanation, to have the damage put right, and very likely to compensation, because the warrant never named them, and so it never gave anyone the right to be in their home. Their calm, their notes, their photographs of the broken door. That's what turned their worst morning into a claim the force had to settle. And I want to be honest with you about what pursuing that looks like, because it isn't instant, and it isn't about getting rich. It's about accountability. You'd take your copy of the search record, your notes, your photographs, and the names and numbers you gathered to a solicitor who specialises in actions against the police. They'd look at whether the warrant named your address, whether the entry had any lawful basis at all, and whether the way it was carried out breached the rules. If it was a wrong house raid, the claim is often relatively straightforward on the facts. The warrant didn't name you, so there was no authority, and forces frequently settle these rather than defend the indefensible in open court. What you're really buying with that process isn't just the repair bill for the door. It's an official acknowledgement that what was done to you was wrong. A record that makes it less likely to happen to the next family. And the return of something a raid strips away in an instant. The sense that your home is yours and that the law is on your side of the threshold, not theirs. So let me pull the whole thing together into what you actually do, because in the moment, you won't remember a lecture. You'll remember a handful of clear steps. First, and above all, don't fight, don't resist, keep your hands visible and stay calm, because you protect yourself and your case by staying composed, not by struggling. Second, ask to see the warrant, and ask the question, does it name this address? Make them produce it and make it clear out loud that you've asked. Third, become the record. Names, shoulder numbers, the time, the reason they gave, and photograph the damage and the search if you safely can. Fourth, do not consent to anything the warrant doesn't cover. Comply with what's lawful, decline the rest, calmly. And fifth, when it's over, get a copy of the search record and take it to a solicitor, a civil liberties or actions against the police solicitor, and consider a complaint to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. If they were at the wrong house, that is not something you have to simply absorb, it's something the law lets you pursue. Let me bring it home because I want this one to stick. The police can come into your home, but only when the law lets them, and a warrant is tied to one specific address. If that address isn't yours, the warrant is not permission to touch your door. Wrong house raids happen to innocent people through nothing more than an old address or a mistyped number, and in that moment your power isn't to fight, it's to stay calm, ask to see the warrant, ask whether it names your home, and quietly record everything. Because if they've got it wrong, that raid was unlawful, it can breach your rights, and it can end in a claim the police have to answer. The door goes in, but the law does not simply walk in with them. Because here's the truth of it, the most frightening thing about a raid is the feeling that you have no say. that men in uniform are in your home and there's nothing you can do. But that feeling is the lie. You have a say. You have the right to see the warrant, the right not to consent beyond it, the right to a home the state can't invade without lawful reason, and the right to hold them to account if they got the wrong house. The people who come out of this hole aren't the ones who fought in the hallway. They're the ones who knew, even in the chaos, exactly what to ask and exactly what to write down. If this helped you, and I hope it genuinely did, do two things for me. Have a look at the pinned comment and the description, where I've written out the steps and the exact words so they're there if you ever need them. And subscribe, because every week I break down another one of these in plain English so that the next time it's your door or your family or your friends, you already know what the law actually says. I'm Oliver Bennett. Know the law, stay calm, and never assume that because someone's in uniform, they were allowed to be there. I'll see you in the next one.